Nowhere do the catastrophic results of Democrats, their soft on crime policies, they're no more clear than they are right now in Minneapolis, Chris. It was the epicenter of the George Floyd riots. It was the birthplace of the disastrous defund the police crusade. We all remember that. And now it's proudly rebranded as a so-called sanctuary state for transgender ideology. Just take a look at the Minneapolis mayor, Jason Frey.
The shooter's name was in question, the gender of the shooter. No one's really sure what's going on there. 5 years ago it was Robert, then a name change to Robin. Okay. This is being seized in all corners, as you can imagine, in all sorts of ways. And you know that, Mayor. And perhaps that's why when you spoke about this so profoundly and powerfully as you are even here now, but when you spoke about this today publicly, you voiced concern for the transgender community, for the community overall. And obviously, you chose to do that in that moment because you thought it was important. And I wanted to give you a chance to say why you felt it was important to do that in that moment.
Obviously, I've heard about the rhetoric and the narrative that is being pushed out. But here's the thing. Anybody that is going to use this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any community has lost touch with a common humanity.
Chris, now, when I watch that clip, I just think, should we be talking about the trans community and making sure that they feel our love and support? Or should we actually be looking at the Catholics right now, the ones that were actually killed yesterday in that church? Should we actually be reaching out to, I don't know, maybe the victims of this case instead of the person that committed the crime and any associations that that person might be associated with?
Oh, no one cares about dead Christians, dead Catholics. They simply don't, except for literally not even all Christians and Catholics care about that. This is the 42nd or maybe 43rd attack on an American Catholic church this year alone in the United States. It is over 520 attacks on Catholic churches here in the since 2020 in this country. Some of those have been deadly. This is the first mass shooting. They've been satanic. They've been anti-Catholic. They've been pro-abortion. They've been pro-trans. They've gone from defecating into the baptismal font in holy water where newborn babies are put, spreading disease there, and urinating in the holy water, to smashing out stained glass windows of cathedrals, to shooting priests in their rectory, to decapitating statues of Mary, to stealing statues of Christ. The attacks have been nonstop, and no one seems to care. Our last Catholic president, ostensibly, certainly never cared. A mob in San Francisco threatened to attack a Catholic mission and cast St. Juniper Serra's bones into the sea. The church had to just quietly move his remains because California was unwilling to defend them. And, the problem in Minneapolis has a lot of problems. I was there at the height of COVID. I was there during the 2020 elections. It was a vacant city where the hoteliers and the folks who worked there would tell us, you can't leave your car out front, even for a minute, even off, with the doors locked. You have to put it in the garage. And by the way, put it in the garage over there because the mob is going to come by tonight and they'll destroy any cars that are caught in their sight. And this is the road they usually take. We went to a great old-fashioned classic American style steakhouse, walked there to see what Minneapolis was like. It was vacant. It was empty. Half the lights were out. There was a guy on a unicycle, a raised up unicycle with a top hat in the distance, just seemed to be circling us like we were in some kind of creepy postmodern art video. And when we got there, the waiter said business was destroyed. The Starbucks across the street had been burnt out by BLM once. And then when they finally got it reopened, it was burnt out again because they served some of the police officers who were in town who were trying to protect Minneapolis from these rioters and this violence. But honestly, the problem that Minneapolis has and Minnesota has, and the United States has, is not a tolerance for crime. Yesterday's awful murders were not a crime of opportunity. It was not taking a purse because it's easy. It's not jacking a car because it's fun. it was a suicide mission by evil. It's extremely difficult for society to prevent those with simple laws. That's one of the scary parts about humanity, is that you can legislate all you want, but you can't stop just random acts of evil without giving up all freedoms. But the problem is that Minneapolis and Minnesota have had a extreme tolerance for evil and promoting evil. The fact that Minnesota has about the most permissive abortion laws, among the most permissive abortion laws in the entire country, the kind of abortion laws that would shock the European socialists, is abysmal. The fact that Minnesota parents who don't try to affirm the gender of their mentally ill children and children who are being preyed upon by teachers and preyed upon by the darkest corners of the internet, if the parents try to resist that, their children can be taken away from them at 12, at 11, at 17. They can be taken away from them, taken out of the home as if they're abusive. Minnesota, I mean, Governor Tim Walz, I know we're going to talk about this. You know what? We'll get to Tim Walz in a second. But that sort of permissiveness mixed with the open attacks by politicians on the Catholic Church, the open attacks by media on Catholics and Christian values. And by the way, I know that a lot of our viewers are probably not Catholic. Most of them are probably Christian. But there is a reason why Hollywood, why book authors, why politicians, why fashionistas and people at the Met Gala, and why Madonna, why they always focus on Catholicism in their mockery, in their hatred, or just in their dramatic storytellings, in their shows and in their plays, even in a majority Protestant country. And the reason for that is because the symbols and the sacraments and the vestments of Catholicism are essentially the archetype of Christianity and good. Those are the things that the imagination conjures up most readily when you're thinking about this. These are things that the devil fears, the devil hates, does not like these imagery, does not like these crosses, does not like these vestments, does not like those rosaries. And that's why so many of these artists choose to attack it. And that's why so much of this evil chooses to attack it. Even in a country that is majority Protestant, that is governed by Protestants, that becomes a symbol because it's somewhat of an archetype. And I think that's one of the things that we see going on here is that the church, as it has for 2,000 years, is under attack. And actually, in some levels, that's a good thing, which is a strange thing to say, because we have lived in societies where being a Christian, being a Catholic, showing up is part of societal advancement. It's really good for your soul. It's much easier, it's much better for your soul to live in a society where our local crisis pregnancy center is calling us, which has happened to us in the last couple of years, and saying, can you send men down to help the women who are volunteering here protect it from vandals and attackers and the people who are threatening it? Or when our priest calls up after the Dobbs decision and says, I need Knights of Columbus to come guard the Eucharist from Satanists trying to steal it, and I would like an overnight watch over the church to protect it from vandals. Those are it's a good time to prove yourself. It's a good time to show that, hey, we're standing against society, and this is the way that Christians historically ought to be. And it's just painful to see in this country that Christians are a persecuted majority.
Well, you said we'll get to Tim Walz. Let's get to him now. There's a woke social experiment that he favors over public safety, right? They're not going to go out there and fund all of the schools to make sure that they have the proper adequate safety measures. No, instead, Tim Walz, back in March of 2023, signed a trans refugee state bill. Let's go ahead and listen to Governor Tim Walz back in 2023.
Last name, I'm going to do it. Guess what? Love wins. Here you go.
Right, and you can see the Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan, behind him in that red blazer. And she had a shirt on that says, protect trans kids, right? And you see that knife. Chris, when you look at that, this is just saying, like, hey, your rules don't matter. You have to do what we are willing to say. You have to bend the knee to this woke ideology, and we're going to make sure that nobody's going to get away with this just thinking the way that we think and everybody in our audience.
Yeah, it's great. Like, just a glorification of violence, I suppose, against anyone who wants to stop the mutilation of children. And it is mutilation. Absolutely. I wonder, it'd be interesting to see. And I don't know if there's anything to do with this mass killer other than mental illness. But if he was on hormone suppressants, if he was on other different drugs that try to change the immutable nature of human beings and the sex that they're given by God, that were given to him by a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry that profits off of this, I'd be interested in knowing. I think that's something that's absolutely worth investigating. Protect trans kids. I would rather protect actual just children, and that includes, by the way, trans kids. I think a good example of trying to explain this to people who may think that this is punishing children is, you ever see that movie A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe in it? They got this brilliant scientist, John Nash, in it, who's absolutely a genius. And he suffers from schizophrenia. He sees things and he hears things that are not actually there. Now, you can appreciate his mind, you can appreciate his humanity, you can appreciate his contribution, you can love him, and you can want to make him a part of your society, an important part of your academia, an important part of your family, but you don't have to pretend that what he sees and hears is real. That is not compassion. That is not what he needs is apostolic correction. What he needs is someone to guide him and protect him from things that lead to dark fantasies, that lead to hatred of your own body. I can't imagine what some of these kids are going through, where they get to a point where they think that they hate their own body. They're born in the wrong body. That must be exhausting. I can't even stand going out in a hot day in the wrong clothes thinking, oh man, I wore something that was too heavy. So I get it. It's got to be hard on these kids, and they deserve compassion. But this is not compassion. Pumping them full of pharmaceuticals, causing irreconcilable damages to them is not compassion. And Governor Walz is one of many American governors who deserves condemnation for his anti-Catholic sentiments and what he's done. He doesn't come out and say it like some people do, like you saw whether it was in Washington or Oregon, where they were trying to legislate what goes on during sacrament of confession. But he does things like refuse the security that the Catholic schools were begging for because of threats of violence against them and rising attacks on churches. Refuses it. Says, no, we're not doing any police toward that. By the way, here in Virginia, my blue county in Virginia, my kid's Catholic school this morning and every one of my neighbors' Catholic schools, which are different, they're spread around, had police in front of them this morning. They had dogs in front of them, and the fear of copycat killings. The kids have to go by while dogs are sniffing their bags. He refused that security. He also refused just basic things, trying to bring that great tradition of Catholic education into the fold when Minnesota has a program that allows high school students who are excellent in their studies to earn college credits. He said, no, Catholics don't get any of that. They don't get to have access to that. Why? Because in addition to paying our taxes, we also pay for private schooling that teaches mathematics and reading and English, all at greater than, generally higher levels than public schools, but also teaches our religion, so we don't get to get college credits. Those are the sorts of things. You got Governor Josh Shapiro over in Pennsylvania, another state in the top 5 for the most attacks on Catholics in the last 5 years. He made his bones and he made his political reputation attacking the Catholic Church over decades-old crimes, dragging everything that had happened and those awful things that had happened from those liberal seminarians in the 60s and 70s and dragging it back out into the public in the early 2000s and trying to use that to bankrupt the current church, which is just trying to tend to souls. That's how he became governor. We go to Massachusetts, which is another one of the states, traditionally Catholic, with one of the top 5 levels of attacks on Catholics in the country. And they shut down Catholic adoption agencies. They try to shut down Catholic hospitals. By the way, Catholics invented hospitals and adoption. These weren't invented by the pagans. They didn't exist before the church tended to them. And now they can't even do business in Massachusetts unless they're willing to give kids to trans couples, unless they're willing to give little boys to gay couples. These are the sorts of things that are going on in the United States and are being allowed by our politicians. And much more than soft on crime, it's soft on evil. And it allows it to fester.
Yeah, the Democrats are definitely allowing evil to go into places that we never wanted to see anything like this happen.